Good morning, folks. Welcome to a beautiful day in sunny East Anglia. Now, today I wanted to do a video of 5 things that I love about my Renault Clio RS. Now, first of all, I've got to make apologies because in my last video I said that this was the Clio 197 and not the Clio 200. And somebody kindly pointed out in the comments that they thought it was the 200 because of the interior of the car. So I did a bit of digging and it would appear they're right. So this is actually the Clio RS 200. And by looking at the reviews that compared the 197 to the 200, I'm glad it is, because it would appear the 200 is considerably better than the 197. Not that I would have anything to compare it to. So anyway, thanks for that, and less of the rambling, and let's get on and do 5 things I love about my Renault Clio RS 200. So the first thing has to be the looks. I think it looks really, really good, especially in this blue, which name escapes me at the moment. However, I think Renault Sport have done a really good job of the design of this car on the outside. It's unmistakably an RS, but they haven't gone overboard. The little grille fan, whatever you'd call them, in the front wings, I think look really good. They probably don't do anything, but it does make it stand out compared to a normal Clio, which I think is quite important. But like I said, they haven't gone overboard. They haven't made it look too, I don't know, boy racerish. And with the twin exhausts at the back as well, I just think it looks like quite a cool little sports car. My wife calls it my midlife crisis car, and she could very well be right. But I don't know. I just think it looks really good, and I think it does stand out a little bit, but not too much. So there's number 5, the way it looks. Now, number 4 is the all-round practicality of the car. It's comfortable, which I'll come on to a little bit more shortly, but it's comfortable. The ride isn't too hard. There's loads of room in the back for your kids. If you've got a couple of kids, they can fit in the back quite easily. Now, when I compare it to my Mini Cooper S that I had before this, my 5-year-old couldn't get in the back. When he did, he just complained all the time that his legs were getting caught on the back seats and everything like that, and that was just very unpractical. Where there's loads of room. And then you look in the boot space. Now, again, comparing it to the Mini Cooper S, which, you know, was out at the same time as this, and was in the same sort of segment, I can honestly say the boot space on this Clio is probably twice the size of what it was in the Mini, which obviously makes it a hell of a lot more practical, because occasionally I do use this as my daily runaround. I do have another car, an Audi, which I use for my daily, which I'll do a video on that at some point. But if I wanted to, I could happily use this as a daily. And other things as well which makes it practical is the fact that it's comfortable. It's got a sat-nav, it's got cruise control, and for me, who drives to work and back each day and has got things like quite a lot of average speed cameras on the way, the cruise control just pelts massively and stops me breaking the speed limit and getting points on my license. But it's just things like that which help to make this car so practical that you could quite easily use this as a daily runaround. So that's number 4. Basically the practicality and usability of the car on a daily basis. Now, getting on to number 3. Number 3 are a couple of little things, and they're nothing really, but for me, I think it just makes the car feel a little bit more sporty and a little bit special. And the first thing is this little white piece of cloth on the top of the steering wheel, which was probably white when the car was new. It's a little bit discoloured now, but you know, it's something you find on race cars. And I think it's good that Renault Sport have put this on just to give it that little bit more of a sporty appearance. And the second thing I like about it is when you hit or come towards the rev limiter, the car bleeps at you to let you know that you need to change gear. And again, it harps back to the days of of racing cars where they do that so they don't have to look at the rev counter. And so a couple of things like that just make it, I don't know, a little bit special really. Like I say, they're only little things, but in my eyes make it a little bit more special and just shows you that, you know, Renault Sport have thought about making a little sporty car. So that's number 3. So number 2, which I've already alluded to, is the ride and the handling. Now the ride and the handling is phenomenal. Now I'll be brutally honest, before I bought the car I didn't really read that many reviews on it. I read a few and they all said the same, that it was a fantastic car, the best in its class in the day, you know, in 2009 when it came out. It's absolutely true. The ride and handling is, I mentioned it in my last video when I did a 6-month review of it, that it's fun to drive. So the suspension's quite stiff, but not overly stiff, but at the same time gives a really, really compliant ride. And you can just tell that Renault Sport have put a lot of time and energy and money into making this car the best little sports car that they can make. I mean, they obviously haven't wasted money on the interior or things like that. Things that don't really matter in a small sports car, but on things that are important, like the engine, like the ride and the suspension. And again, you know, I've got to compare it to the Mini because that was a car that I had before this. You know, the suspension on the Mini was horrific. You know, I could not have used that car as a daily driver purely just because of how hard the suspension was, where in this you absolutely can. And it's actually quite pleasurable to drive just in everyday driving. What's this guy doing? He's trying to crash. So there's number 2, the ride and the handling. Renault Sport have done a top-notch job, and by all accounts a big improvement over the 197. Which leads us to number 1. You know, cue the drum roll. Not that I've got a drum roll, but cue it anyway. The engine and the noise. I'll put them both in the same bracket. Nowadays, in the days of, you know, making cars cleaner and better fuel economy and everything like that, all cars are turbocharged or supercharged. This obviously is still the 2-litre naturally aspirated engine, and it revs through to pretty much 8,000 RPM. And even though it hasn't got a lot of torque, it's only got 159 pounds of torque, it does mean you have to work the engine. However, to me, in a sports car, that is part of the fun. In fact, to be honest, it's, as with the ride and the handling, it's probably the majority of the fun, is having to work the car. And to be honest, not much happens before 4,000, even 5,000 RPM. And I think I read when I was looking at the specs on this, the peak torque figure comes in at about 7,250 RPM. So you've really got to work it hard to extract the most out of the performance. But it's pleasurable. And then you get onto the exhaust note. If this car sounded like a bag of nails, it probably wouldn't be that much fun to rev out, but it doesn't. It sounds absolutely amazing, and by far the best 4-cylinder engine noise I think I've ever heard on any car. It sounds fantastic. Now, because it's only got 200 PS, it's not massively quick. 0 to 60, 6.9 seconds ish, so around 7 seconds. But it's quick enough for this sort of car, and what it means is that you can pretty much use all the performance on the road. So unlike a lot of new cars where they are ridiculously quick, you can never get to the limits on the road without going straight to jail. This you can actually use pretty much all the performance on the road. So I'm going to miss the naturally aspirated engines when it comes to selling this, you know, unless I can think of something else that's got a naturally aspirated engine which is going to be small, fun, quick, for reasonably, for reasonable cost. I am going to miss it. But so they're the 5 things that I love about my Renault Clio. I could have probably gone and done a few more, to be honest, but I won't bore you any longer. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.